The gang rape and murder of a 23-year-old medical student aboard a moving bus has opened a Pandora's box. First, there's, of course, the case itself. There's Thursday, 5 men charged with murder. They could face the death penalty. A 6th suspect is underage. Justice could prove swift in the face of national outrage. But that's rarely the case. India's National Crime Records Bureau found that just 26% of the more than 24,000 rape cases registered in 2011 resulted in a conviction there. This one, however, could be a turning point. This Thursday, furious villagers turned on a senior politician from the ruling Congress party in the northeastern state of Assam. After accusations he entered a woman's home in the middle of the night and raped her, he is under arrest. As others startling cases emerge and politicians scramble to keep up, India's women are highlighting a darker side to what's often billed as the world's largest democracy, a nation that's long seen female prime ministers, important role models, but also ranks shockingly poorly when it comes to the treatment of women. As India emerges economically, what does this case say about the status of women and about India itself? Today in the France 24 debate, the outrage in India, and with us to talk about it from New Delhi, France 24 correspondent Natasha Butler. Welcome back to the debate. From Mumbai, journalist and activist Divya Rajagopal. She writes for the Times of India. Thank you for being with us here in the studio. NDTV's Nupar Tiwali, thank you for being back with us. And French criminal lawyer Martine Moscovici, welcome. You're an active campaigner, I know, against domestic violence here in France and around the world. The France 24 debate, where you can join the conversation on Facebook and on Twitter. You can find us at François F24. Let's begin with Natasha Butler in Delhi. Natasha, tell us about exactly what happened in court this Thursday.
Well, basically, the police presented a list of charges, the charge sheet, to a court in South Delhi, in a Saket court, I should say. And those charges were presented, and then the magistrate will now set a date for a trial. We're expecting a trial date to be set quite soon. This is a new fast-track court, and as you say, there's been a huge public outcry over this case, and many people will want to see this legal process be swiftly attended to.
When you say soon, how soon?
Well, it could be just a matter of days. I mean, the latest that's coming out from here is perhaps not this weekend, but as early as next week. And if anyone knows the Indian judicial system, that's pretty fast indeed. As you say, 5 suspects face possibly the death penalty if they're found guilty of rape, murder, amongst many other things. There are many other charges on those charge sheets, some 1,000 pages that document actually totaled. And as you said, a minor also faces justice. Now, he's actually being kept in a juvenile home. He's also going to be tested, bone marrow tested, by the authorities to see whether or not he is indeed 17, as he says, or whether perhaps he was actually 18 when the crime was committed. Only then will we see what will happen to him next.
All right. Let me get your reaction, Divya Rajagopal. A trial to take place perhaps within days. Is it going to be due process for the accused?
Going by the outreach which in Delhi and across the country, it looks that the state has taken measures.
I'm going to interrupt you, Divya, because we're having technical issues with the sound, which we hope we can correct very fast and get back to you. Let me put this to you, Nupur Tiwari. How do you think the state prosecutor and everyone is handling it so far?
Well, I can tell you that the charge sheet that was filed today should have actually been done in another court for it to go faster. So there's already been a delay because the court that could have authorized this case to be shifted to the fast-track court is not the one where the charge sheet was filed. So there's already a delay. But given the kind of attention this case has been given, I think the justice is likely to be fairly rapid. But it might lead to capital punishment, and not everybody in India at least thinks that that really is the way things should be going.
All right, and the fact that they've possibly faced the death penalty, is that suitable punishment for this in this particular instance?
Well, there are different camps in India. There has been a lot of outrage on this case, which is why a lot of people have been going out there and saying, hang the rapists and so on. But there's also, certain members of the, Indian society also feel that this is not the way to go about it. I mean, the answer to violence is not more violence. So there is also a stream of thought where people feel that this is not the way we should be going. Mob justice is not what we should be asking for. I mean, I don't know if you've heard about this case in Jharkhand where 5 men were actually lynched after they allegedly sexually harassed a woman. There's been a lot of violence after this case as well. So there is a kind of convulsion happening in India right now, and there is a lot of confusion as well. There are protests, there are a lot of voices. The media is really going out and talking about this, giving it a lot of airtime, which is important because this is a discussion that should have been done earlier. This is a conversation that we absolutely need to have today in India. Not in India alone, I think, also in the rest of the world. But the way things are going right now, there's been so much brutality in this case. There's so much grief and so much passion. The public sentiment is also something that is going to count. Everyone's on the political, the politicians are sort of worried that, this is the time where they need to do something. Maybe the judiciary needs to be reformed. There's so many questions that have actually fallen out of this. I mean, there is judicial reform, police reform, the way we talk about women in popular culture. I mean, there's a whole lot of things that we are talking about today in India.
And we're going to try to get to some of those issues. Let's first, though, focus on the case itself. Divya Rajagopal, what do you see now as the best possible outcome? Do you want to see a fast trial in the next couple of days?
So the fast track shouldn't be only for this case. The issue is the rape is
happening across the country almost every day. So it's not about this single case. In fact, what this case has probably done has opened, as Nupur was mentioned, a Pandora box, where we're not talking about violence against women or rape against women in a particular city or a particular instance, but look at the larger issue. In fact, if we go on to delve, what actually makes men to rape women or to turn violent, we have to start looking into the own Indian society and Indian families. Now, as Nupur was pointing out about the death penalty, which everyone has been talking about, if every rape accused starts getting death penalty, some of them might be the fathers and the brothers, because the worst form of violence happens within the homes, which gets unreported. Now, this is a big issue that no one is talking about. So this case is definitely a benchmark case, but this is going to leave all of us, journalists and also women and also men, to think about why exactly men are behaving the way they are. It goes back to the deep-rooted Indian tradition, where women are treated as a secondary citizen. I think, and that's the attitudinal change that has to go through, and that will happen within the homes. A state can formulate laws and they can implement it. Will it get followed? We don't know. But the actual laws, the actual idea of respecting a woman should come within the families. And it's the families who are supposed to actually teach their sons to respect women.
Martin Moscovici, let me get your reaction here. This case is happening in India, and as our panelists have been saying, it's perhaps a watershed moment for that country. Is it a watershed moment for the whole world?
Probably, because what has happened is really dreadful. So everyone seems really... everyone takes part of it, and everyone thinks that what has happened shouldn't have happened. But in France, it couldn't happen the same way. Not the gang rape. The gang rape can happen, but it doesn't go so fast. Before there's a trial in France, it takes minimum 2 or 3 years before the people are going to court.
Natasha Butler, have we worked out the specifics on how this could have happened on a moving bus?
Yes, well, indeed. Well, the young couple that boarded the bus, the victim and her male companion, they actually boarded a bus thinking it was a legitimate bus. They thought they were going to be able to go home, so they hopped on. There were men on board. They looked like passengers, so there was nothing at all suspect. It was only once they were on that bus and some of those passengers actually turned on the male companion of the victim that I think that probably it became clear that it wasn't a legitimate bus after all. The bus driver, he was a bus driver, but he'd actually stolen the bus, I should say, for that evening. He'd taken it for something of a joyride with his friends. He then continued to drive around the town whilst the suspects allegedly raped the woman for what we understand is nearly an hour. So that's how it happened that bus actually kept moving. It's extraordinary to think. But then again, it's not that unusual. I mean, not that unusual, I should say, in the sense that this is, an enormous city with millions of people, lots of traffic, lots of congestion. This was late at night. The bus windows may have been tinted because many of the public bus windows are actually tinted. There's no reason that bus would have been stopped particularly. And it may seem very shocking a thing to imagine. But in fact, in reality, it's not difficult to see how those men could have got away with it if they're found guilty.
And Nupur Tiwari, Delhi's a city you know well. You grew up there.
Absolutely. In fact, I doubt it very much. There's a single woman in all of Delhi who hasn't taken the, Delhi transportation and hasn't been sexually harassed, not just once, but several times. Perhaps each time she boards the bus, she has to make sure that she's, being able to defend. I remember when I used to be in the Delhi University, each time I got onto the bus, I used to think of ways I'm going to save myself from being groped. And I sometimes even carried an empty bottle to just hit people. It's that bad. What Natasha was saying about these people getting away, and your question as to how these people could just get away with this, that's one of the major problems in Delhi, at least, everywhere else in India, where the probability of a criminal getting caught is really low. So it starts there. And the problem is probably also with our police force, which is a weak police force. I mean, apart from the fact that it's also a corrupt force, there's only about one policeman for 1,000 people in India. And that one policeman is also not very well equipped to deal with criminals, apart from the larger law and order problem. So this is a problem, of course. And the other thing is that convictions are very, very low. In Delhi itself, like you may have heard, there's only been one case of conviction in a year, where there were 600 cases that were reported. So these are problems that already exist. And the other thing, there are lots of things that we are not talking about, like marital rape, which is not even considered an offense by Indian law, among other things. And there has been today itself, there was a woman who came to the NDTV office in Assam and who said, look, I have been raped in pretty much the same fashion. It was a gang rape. She was beaten up with iron rods, and the man is free. He's roaming free. So she's asking for swift justice as well. There are a whole lot of things we're not talking about. It's not just Delhi.
And she's going to your TV station, not to the police in this case,
exactly,
to talk about it. Indian politicians, though, they seem they are saying, at least those from the ruling Congress party, they've been praising the fact that the case has been put on a fast track and bill its handling as a precedent.
This is a big step. It will fast-track the proceedings, and the culprits will be punished in time. The whole country and the government want the same thing. The culprits should be given strict punishments, so that it instills fear in the minds of others, and nobody dares to commit such heinous crimes.
But many citizens feel that politicians are behind the curve on this one. And it's not just the opposition that's accusing the ruling Congress party of playing political football with this case, as evidenced by this cartoon in Thursday's edition of The Hindu. Divya Rajagopal, why have Indian politicians gone in for so much criticism since this horrible case occurred?
As I've mentioned earlier, rapes have always been happening, especially in Delhi. Women have been sexually molested. They've been raped. But this time, I think people had it enough, because they couldn't take just the apathy from the government side in terms of protecting their women. basic law and order kind of slipped. And I think that's the reason why the politicians have come under severe criticism, because the kind of response which the politicians gave when the incident happened was appalling. The prime minister came after 8 days of the incident happened to the national TV and announced how outraged he was. You don't wait for 8 days to come and express your outrage when the nation is boiling, right? So I think the delay in just coming out and then taking stock of things is what has outraged the people even more, and that's what puts the Congress government also in a very poor light. They just thought that it is just a one-day protest and it will die probably in 2 days' time, but it did not happen. It just kept on going. People's anger did not die because it's been building up for the last too many years, and they've been crying for help and it's never come to them. And I think that's the reason that the politicians have come under severe criticism this time.
And Natasha Butler, as you've been covering the story, did you get a sense that politicians were caught out by what happened?
I don't know if you could say that they were caught out, but they were, I think, probably incredibly surprised at the response to this gang rape, at the amount of women who came out in the street. I mean, it's not necessarily very common to see women, I should say, specifically out in the street, protesting, getting really angry, raising their voice. That's something that women aren't often seen doing in India. And then we also saw a lot of people who were, let's say, part of the middle class. These weren't poor people demonstrating about land or some of the things we often see in India, but these were people often quite educated, young, urban, coming out and saying, we're fed up with our politicians, we're fed up of the old school way of seeing things, we feel like our voice needs to be heard. And there's something of a shift, a sea change, and many people have pointed out that perhaps this is a tipping point and these protests really can't be ignored in that way. And I think the government were very slow to realise that.
All right.
Also, a lot of politicians in India have actually been charged with rape or with sexual assault on women, and they're all
as is the case
parties.
With this politician in Assam state this Thursday.
Absolutely, there's that one case, but all the political parties, major political parties in India, have given tickets to politicians who have these cases pending against them. So people don't trust politicians. But apart from that, there's also the problem that Natasha was talking about, that, all these women coming out in the streets, and we're talking about these middle-class women coming out in the streets. And I have heard a lot in the French media as well as the European media about how, it's only the middle class. But it's not just only the middle class. It's these women who are empowered enough, who are articulate enough, and who can actually come out in the streets and protest against rape and not get beaten up by their husbands or by their brothers at home. So, this is also, they are the leaders, so to speak, of this protest, of, this conversation that we are having today in India. So that is something really important, what's happening today. And we have to give it to the Indian media also, who's been really leading up front. I mean, there are things that we are not talking about, but at the same time, by staying on the story and carrying on and talking about them.
It's applying pressure.
Yeah.
We're going to pick up on that point when we return. Stay with us. This is the France 24 debate.